Alright, so here is the DSG being placed in this gearbox body, and I'm going to talk about the internals. Basically, this is going to be DSG'd from here. So, from here on out, we're going to have a 60 amp resettable fuse with the MRF MOSFET 3.2 with a small battery. It's about 12.6 volts when fully charged. It gives about 55 amps to this setup. Now usually you want to start with a 50 amp reset fuse, so I might use a 50 amp reset fuse. This is a 160 amp reset fuse, which makes no sense to me, so I need to supply my own fuse because this protects itself but it does not protect the battery, as well as other things like the motor. But usually when you put the fuse towards the back, we're going to put the fuse between the MOSFET and the motor, so that's where it's going to be. But it's going to be velcroed in the back of the stock, and then basically very easy to it's a push button reset breaker, and very easy to remove. I have anywhere from 30 to 90 that I can put down. So I could try 50, but from my previous test, this amperage is used over 50 on full auto burst. So it's definitely power hungry setup. So I'm just putting it to 60 just in case, but I don't think it will ever get there. From my test, it didn't. It barely ran over the 50s. So basically talking about what's in the gearbox now, we have a garter anti-rustle latch. Garter has very nice anti-rustle latches. Basically these three gears go to the 14:1 ratio of the dual sector gear, and that's the, I believe, the Cyclone series, the really fast series. Right here we have a blue Lonex Swiss cheesed piston with sorbo on the back to prevent the back spinning. I saw a little bit of an indentation, but no marking. No, there's a marking, but not damage, real conceivable damage. So I put that there just in case if the battery has lost too much voltage. This does cut off at 10.1. However, the spring is an M170. Might upgrade to an M190. For these reasons, the battery needs to be bigger. The battery is really small. It's not good. So we're basically getting away barely with the skin of our teeth, but we will be going with a bigger battery pretty soon, probably a 14.8. So here is an SHS Tappet Plate version 2. This is Coresolve version 2. The SHS Tappet Plate is really nice. For, I think I paid $2.50 for it. $2.50, incredible. We have a garter bore up here. There is no sorbo at the front. Now, I have installed the sorbo many of times, but I'm trying to get the maximum air count in here. So we're going with non-sorbo but spaced, so we get an angle of an AOE correction back here. So the third tooth is down 50%. After shooting this with the battery, I have not seen it touch the fourth tooth, so I've just left it basically what it is. Basically there's that. Springs, these are from an upgraded set, I think. This one broke previously, replaced it. Now this was all in another body at one point. It was only in the other body because it had better meshing. I had to spend a lot more hours to go back to this and make it more perfect. But basically what happened is it started cracking. And I kind of knew it might start cracking, that VFC body. So what I've done here is actually two things. One, I already had this body before, but it was a lot of work to get the internals in here. I had to radius front of the gearbox shell because it couldn't fit this bore-up kit. This is a garter bore-up kit, blue Lonex with the red garter bore-up plastic, and I dried fired this quite a bit of times, and still no mess up on that. I'd done things like glue, super glue, red Loctite for the screws and so forth, just basically holding everything down in place. Let me go over more of the parts first before I show you the reinforcement that I've worked on here. So the other parts here is, I think we have a G&G trolley right here, and the springs were from the upgraded set for here and here. I think at King Arms. I'm not sure where it came from, it's been a long time. Here's the King Arms trigger housing, I guess. We can see the contacts are really close together, so it makes it real easy to just slightly pull the trigger and bam, you're there, you know. You could put it a little bit closer if I wanted to, but I think this is best because I only have plastic on the back of the trolley arm, so basically it'll still work very well. The prep work here was having to, I don't know if you can see this, there is some plastic on the, let me get a tool here real quick, kind of to show. There's some plastic right here on this safety bar. You can see it's glued on there to make it straight. It's been dremelled and so forth. Let me get out of the shadow if I can. Okay, so the reason for that is because the trigger would come down and hit into it because it's slanted, so you could actually pull the trigger. So I've actually corrected this so that cannot happen, and it's very stiff. I mean, if you were in safety, it's like you can't, right now you can move it a little bit, but once the gearbox is closed, it's stiff. You cannot move very much at all. Basically what I did was I sanded and super glued another piece of plastic right there, and I made it perfect so that this barely goes through it, free flowing of course. And this is a Speed Canada trigger. There is no adjustment screw. I took that out in the back. Spring for this, I'm not even sure. I guess it came from just a regular G&G trigger. And then here, this is a G&G safety bar. So on the spring for that, same thing, G&G. So in here we have this wiring came with the MOSFET, the MERF 3.2 MOSFET, then soldered on. As we can see, there's no real shorting. Basically, red wire comes up this way and folds back down here. And the reason for that is so it holds it in place here. It doesn't go anything to the housing, just this does, which is a mini Dean's that goes to another mini Dean's and then to this. And basically, so that's pretty simple. Spring guide is garter version 2. Very beefy, very nice. Had to sand it down. You can see it's a total different color. I think it came silver, and now it's like chrome because of all the sanding to make it fit in the spring. So this is garter bore up, garter cylinder head, and piston, or excuse me, air nozzle. Those are all bore up, with the piston head is garter too, bore up. You know, the reason I stayed with those things is because I like those parts. So you can critique it or whatever you want, but basically I love those parts, and if they're working, then I use them. The only piston I suggest for the DSG is a Blue Lonix. I've tried many that have been on the list, and quite frankly, they are just should be removed. Again, this is my experience and my honest belief, so you can critique that all you want, but I'm just saying. So Blue Lonix is the only thing I use. I use plenty of Blue Lonixes. I've probably bought 10 in the last few months. So basically that's pretty much it. Any more adjustments I've made, the back of the trigger. Let's look down in there. You can see it's been sanded. Kind of show that. Right here, the back of the trigger. It's been sanded a little bit. The reason for that, you can see it's gray right there, and its shape. The reason for that is to make the cutoff not bump so hard to pull the trolley out. Makes it very easy. Basically, I'm just doing every little thing to make it perfect. So the bump is very easy. It does a lot less wear. There is a garter cutoff down beneath this gear. Shims are GMP 0.1 millimeter, And the shell, of course I didn't say this, is a CNC Super shooter. Now I was already pretty certain that this setup might crack in the other shell, but I like to just run things and see what happens. And I was chronoing 330 2.5s with bad compression. Well, I wouldn't say bad compression, but it wasn't the best compression. And now with the O-ring very expanded, I get a really good air compression. So you can see I can't push that forward, and that's with the Tappet Plate forward. So air compression is going to jump way up. I'm guessing close to the 350, 400. Now when I did chrono this, it was with 2.5s, so I got 300 consistently between 300 and 310 with 2.5s. That's pretty much it. I don't think there's anything else to say other than, oh, what bearings did I use? They are Modify underneath ceramic bearings, and the shim job, of course, perfect. Tappet plates cut. Had to sand the shell. The trigger housing did not fit in here. I had to cut the bottom out to make it fit. I had to put electrical liquid tape on the other side so I wouldn't create a short with the G&G what do you call that, selector in there. I think that's pretty much thorough to everything. Now talking about reinforcement, here is the Prometheus set, and I've prepped it pretty much everything. I forget what this is called. Okay, I bought this on eBay a long time ago. It's from gosh, he's pretty known for making airsoft upgrades, and I can't remember his name, but I think it was made in Utah. I can't remember anyways. Springs in it were really stuck and worn out. I had to take this apart, adjust that. I had to sand it down to get it to fit, and basically this is just an added protection for this, plus the CNC Super Shell. So other things I've had to done to the shell, I had to cut the holes around the shell. You can see here too, just because it would clip my wire. It's so sharp. Every once in a while, if I was doing something, it just clipped it, and I had to replace the wire or put heat shrink through over it. And you can kind of see the markings of what kind of damage it would do to it. So basically, this marking right here is from that wire being in the other shell. And again, I only used that shell because there was a lot of prep work to get this going to go into the body. But that's internally what is here. Everything's pretty simplistic, and that's how I like to do things. You can see there's not very much to this setup. Everything's pretty much straightforward. Everything's pretty much been close to perfection or perfected, and there's not really much more to say than that. I've tested compression on this end. I've matched with all kinds of brands, so the compression is good. I've lubed up everything. Pretty much, I don't go crazy with the grease. You can kind of see some of it is slung on the spur gear because it's between the two here, but I don't go crazy. So, all right, battery can fit in here. It's just a little tight. There's the reset fuse in there and the MOSFET, and basically this is what it sounds like when shot. Sounds perfect. Full auto. I notice when I do this, parts move all kinds of crazy because it's really fast, and I can't believe I got this battery, and I got it a little bit under 50 amps. Lonix motor with a garter pinion. Basically the other pinion, the Lonix, didn't last, but this one did. A lot better job. So it has a CNC shell, has the plate in here to hold it very well, and this is just so tiny of a little DSG. And I mean, I also fixed the compression, so I'm pretty sure we're going to be getting 350 on 2.5s or even more than that. It's so crisp. Look at the pull. It's because of my modification for the trigger. Look at the trigger pull on safety. It's stiff. You can't do anything. So semi again, just to show. This is just barely. And full auto. When I do this, the battery is trying to come out, and the pin in here, you can see for the this thing right here is coming out. This pin jerks out sometimes, and basically the whole thing, even this, is trying to become undone because this thing just hits so fast. And I shot it quite a bit before I started recording, and it's still barely warm on the grip. So I mean, this is a little monster. It's got the 14 ratio gears in there from dual sector. So wow, that's all I can say. This thing is just absolutely gorgeous. If you're going to ask for cost, basically more than $1,000 in parts. For external, I mean, I had to buy external and everything here, and internally, and then just a lot of tools and stuff that I didn't have, stuff to check amperage and so forth, so I could get to this point to make this as perfect as possible, and it is perfect as possible right now. Things sound so amazing. The biggest problem I had with this gun was the pistol grip, and the pistol grip, for some reason, it creates an angle right here. The motor comes in a little bit more like an angle, and then there's a gap right here. So when I would put this in, the pinion would not go where I wanted it to, so I unfortunately had to drill a hole to see where it's going, and every time I put it in, I could see it just wasn't going where I wanted to. So basically, you can see I didn't want to sand anything here because the space. But what I'm going to do is put some kind of emblem over this. Just put maybe some Velcro, and put a Velcro emblem over it so I can take it off whenever I need to see the motor head adjustment. But this thing is perfect. This thing is ready to go. Can't be more devastating. This thing is going to be devastation. So that's pretty much it, guys. I'll catch you later and bump you with a fist.